My wife's ex-boyfriend is terminally ill and wants to use his Make-A-Wish to spend a day with her. I'm torn on what to do. Hello, Reddit. My wife, let's call her Susan, and I have been married for 8 years. I've known her since before we got together, during which time she was dating someone named Ken, not his real name. We were all part of a choral group in our church. The three of us were actually quite good friends, and I genuinely thought Susan and Ken were going to get married or be together for a long time. It was a shock when Susan told me they were no longer together. According to her, one day Ken suddenly decided he wanted to move interstate. When she asked why, he didn't explain. The next day, he asked Susan if she wanted to join him. Confused, Susan said no, she thought it was way too soon, and she had work commitments. He then proceeded to break up with her, leaving her very depressed and confused. According to information from a friend several months after the breakup, Ken had planned this for a long time and was allegedly seeing someone else interstate. However, those were just allegations based on some texts, and to this day, Susan never found out exactly why he left or why he broke up with her. It was all very confusing. When asked by friends why they broke up, she simply said, "I don't know. He just broke up with me because I didn't want to move interstate with him." Years passed. We all moved on. Susan started opening up to me more, then we started dating, and the rest followed. Anyway, yesterday Susan received a call from Ken's mom. She's a nice lady who semi-frequently watches our performances and volunteers during the Christmas carol season. It was very sudden, because we only see her once or twice a year, and she's never called us before. She told Susan that Ken is terminally ill, and has been for the past couple of months. He's in a hospital interstate. The hospital has a mini Make-A-Wish type program run by volunteers, and apparently Ken's request is to go to the national park for a picnic with her. It sounds weird, right? I thought it was a bluff too. But everything seems legitimate. I talked to Ken's mom, and we both agreed it's odd. She told Susan she doesn't have to say yes, she's simply passing along Ken's request. The prognosis is grim, and we don't know how much time he has left. I suppose the sooner we decide, the better. Susan is obviously confused. She wants nothing to do with Ken after what he did to her, and it's been a long time, but she admitted she'd feel bad refusing someone's last wish, especially if his prognosis is that serious. She even joked, "Well, you don't have to worry about me cheating, he's going to die anyway." A bit dark, but she has a point. Personally, I'm torn as well. I trust Susan, and I know nothing romantic would come from this if she decides to see Ken. But why does he want to see her now? Closure? That's the only thing I can think of. A hospital volunteer would likely go with them to the picnic, so it's not like Ken can do anything strange. But why her? Why not use his wish for something else? On the other hand, reversing the situation, if I were terminally ill and wanted to see someone for closure, and they refused, I'd be devastated. I know how awful it must feel to have your last wish rejected. Am I overthinking this? Should we honor his request and let Susan spend the day with him? Or should we refuse? Any input is appreciated. Edit, forgot to mention, a hospital volunteer will accompany him to the picnic to supervise, so they won't be alone. Update 1, so my wife contacted Ken's mom and we asked more questions. Thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts. Ken's mom only learned yesterday about his plan to see Susan. He never mentioned it during his hospital stay. Ken has been reaching out to many people recently, including old high school friends. His mom thinks he may be trying to reconcile with a lot of people at once. When Susan asked his mom if she remembered anything about the breakup, she said she didn't even know they broke up until weeks later. Ken has always felt there was nothing for him to do in our state and wanted something different. He may have jumped the gun too quickly, taken a job without consulting Susan, and panicked when she wasn't ready to move. Susan agreed that this explanation makes sense, but still feels what he did wasn't right since he never communicated his unhappiness at the time. Ken's new job was stressful, and he got into weed, alcohol, and heavy smoking, which contributed to his current illness. It's been confirmed a medical volunteer will accompany him outside the hospital. He will likely be wheelchair-bound soon. When asked why the picnic idea, his mom had no idea. He is okay with me coming along. He's also fine meeting at the hospital, but there's a strict 2 visitors per day rule. He is reluctant to do a Skype or phone call. His speech is slurred and his mouth is dry from lack of eating/drinking, so speaking is uncomfortable. Writing a letter is also difficult because he's drowsy from medication. Some days his mom helps him type emails. He might be transferred home for end-of-life care soon. His mom reiterated that Susan can decline and she would understand, but she hopes will consider it for her son. After this conversation, we're leaning more toward going. Susan feels apathetic toward him but says she'd feel guilty not going. With the supervision, we feel the situation is pretty harmless. We'll stay in contact with his mom as plans develop. Update 2, thank you, Reddit. Susan and I talked more after running errands today. We reached out to a couple of friends from the choral group, and one of them actually knew Ken was unwell, but didn't know he was this unwell. Apparently, his condition has been kept very quiet. Susan said it seems like she has the ability to make his end of life a little easier, so she wants to visit him, with me there, and hear whatever he has to say. And that will be the end of it. We don't know the logistics yet, since it requires planning from his family, but I will post another update when the meeting happens. Our choral group members are also planning to visit him separately once restrictions lift, and they want to sing him a final song, The Irish Blessing. For those mentioning that Make-A-Wish is only for kids, we know. This is the hospital's version, run by volunteers, only offered in end-of-life care. His mom just used the phrase Make-A-Wish because it's easy to understand. Why the park? No clue. Probably just something peaceful and outside. And why post on Reddit? Because it's such a strange situation. If Ken weren't dying and randomly asked Susan to meet in a park, the answer from both of us would have been a hard no. But given that he's terminal and reaching out to many people, it's more complicated. Update 3, last update for now, we will be seeing Ken next week. The hospital doesn't allow large groups, so it will just be the two of us. The choir group will visit separately. Thank you for all the input. Final update, hi everyone, sorry for the late update. Life has been busy. But here's how it went. The meeting actually went really well. After a couple reschedules, we drove to the hospital earlier this week. We arrived around 8 a.m. His mom stays overnight most days, so it was a good time for her to take a break. A Redditor suggested we bring a care package for her, so we did, a box with warm socks, moisturizer, books, and toiletries. She burst into tears receiving it. We went in together and caught up with Ken. It took time, since he can't speak for long stretches. After a bit, I asked if he wanted some time alone with Susan, and he said yes. I left to walk around and do some remote work. Susan texted me a couple hours later to return. She asked him what happened, why he left so suddenly and whether he had ulterior motives. This is what he told her. Ken was working a low-paying job and felt he had no future. He has always been creative, he has a diploma in film, but what we didn't know is he had been secretly applying for animation industry jobs. He applied for fun, didn't expect to get anything, and months later was offered an intern animator position. He was shocked and unprepared. He said yes without thinking. The job required him to move interstate immediately. As an intern, he'd earn even less money, and he was afraid Susan wouldn't support that, so he didn't tell her details before asking her to move. He admitted it was stupid and immature. After moving, he realized the industry involved extreme crunch time. He was constantly exhausted, often sleeping at the office waiting for renders to finish. He began drinking like everyone else there. This escalated into heavy drinking, then smoking, then drugs. He eventually became a technical lead, but had no real support system. His only social outlet was coworkers who also drank heavily. He got into many bad situations, arrests, being fired, etc. His substance abuse ultimately destroyed his health. When asked about the park, he said there was no deeper meaning. He was simply tired of being stuck indoors and wanted to go outside. I later caught up with him as well. We reminisced about old times. He told me some of his high school friends had visited and it made him really happy. He also said he tried reaching out to several ex-girlfriends to apologize, but only Susan responded. That made him sad, but he wanted closure while he still could. As for prognosis, he said he doesn't know, but plans are underway for home-based end-of-life care. On the way home, I asked Susan how she felt. She said she felt much better, relieved, even. During the explanation she apparently cursed a lot, saying things like, "I can't believe he did that. What an idiot." For anyone worried she would get back with him. That's not happening. The next day she said she mostly stopped thinking about it. She just hopes his mom can cope, since she's a wonderful person. Susan looks less guilty now, which I'm grateful for. We haven't talked about it much since. We're focused on work and an upcoming road trip. Thank you to everyone who offered perspectives. In these uncertain times, we should still try to be kind to others. And if there's any takeaway from this, it's to seek help if you need it. Ken was clearly struggling and surrounded by bad influences. If someone in your life is spiraling or developing destructive habits, reach out. You never know whose life you might save.